Welcome to the Truth in Crime Case Files. The documentary begins with Vivienne Cross, a woman whose life appeared perfect, but was marred by deep-seated dissatisfaction and loneliness. Married to Harold Cross, a dedicated husband and successful businessman, Vivienne found herself trapped in a life that felt increasingly stifling. While Harold poured his energy into work, Vivienne felt neglected and unfulfilled, yearning for emotional connection and excitement. As the days turned into months, Vivienne's sense of isolation festered. She often spent her evenings alone in their spacious home, the silence echoing her unspoken frustrations. Her marriage, once filled with passion and promise, had devolved into a routine of mundane conversations and missed connections. It was during one of these lonely evenings that she met Dylan Grayson, the teenage son of her neighbor Lance Grayson. Dylan was a bright and charismatic young man, full of youthful exuberance that drew Vivienne in like a moth to a flame. Their initial interactions were innocent enough, casual chats over the fence while he mowed the lawn or helped her carry groceries. However, as summer approached and the days grew longer, their relationship began to shift. What started as friendly banter soon morphed into flirtation, igniting a spark that neither of them could ignore. The allure of the forbidden captivated Vivienne. She found herself drawn to Dylan's youthful energy and carefree spirit, a stark contrast to her own life filled with responsibilities and expectations. In Dylan's presence, she felt alive again. Their conversations deepened. They shared secrets and dreams under the cover of night when the world outside was asleep. It wasn't long before their innocent friendship escalated into a passionate affair, a dangerous liaison that would ultimately lead to devastating consequences. As their relationship intensified, Vivienne became increasingly reckless. She would sneak out at night to meet Dylan in secluded spots away from prying eyes. Their stolen moments were filled with both exhilaration and fear. Text messages exchanged between them became more explicit, revealing the depth of their emotional entanglement. Vivienne felt liberated in Dylan's company, but she also grappled with guilt over her betrayal of Harold and the potential fallout if their affair were discovered. Meanwhile, Harold remained blissfully unaware of his wife's infidelity. He was consumed by his work at a local tech firm, often staying late to meet deadlines or attend networking events. His dedication to providing for his family left little room for intimacy or connection with Vivienne. He believed he was doing everything right, working hard to secure their future, but in reality he was neglecting the emotional needs of his wife. As summer turned into fall, the affair continued to flourish in secrecy. However, with each passing day came an increasing sense of tension. Both Vivienne and Dylan knew that their actions could not remain hidden forever. The thrill of their secret rendezvous began to be overshadowed by anxiety about being discovered, a fear that would soon become a harsh reality. On an unremarkable Tuesday evening in late September, everything changed. The tranquility of the neighborhood was shattered when Lance Grayson returned home early from work only to find his son missing from their house. After searching through the neighborhood without success, he called the police to report Dylan as missing. As officers began their investigation into Dylan's whereabouts, they would soon uncover a tangled web of deceit involving Vivienne, a web that would lead them down a dark path toward murder. The initial reports described a frantic search for a missing teenager. However, as detectives began piecing together information from neighbors and friends, they stumbled upon whispers of an illicit affair between Vivienne Cross and Dylan Grayson. What had once seemed like an ordinary case took on sinister undertones as investigators delved deeper into the lives of those involved. This documentary aims to explore not only the shocking crime itself but also the complex relationships that led to it, the betrayal between husband and wife, the forbidden love between an adult and a minor, and ultimately the tragic consequences that unfolded from hidden secrets. As we unravel this harrowing tale of passion gone awry, we will examine how one woman's desperate search for fulfillment spiraled into violence and irrevocably altered lives forever. Through interviews with those who knew Vivienne and Harold Cross as well as law enforcement officials involved in the case, we will seek to understand how betrayal can manifest in unexpected ways and how choices made in moments of weakness can lead to devastating outcomes. The stage is set for a true crime story that reveals not only the darkness within human relationships but also the profound impact such actions can have on families and communities alike. Vivienne Cross, a woman who effortlessly navigated the social circles of her neighborhood. Yet beneath her polished exterior lay a simmering discontent that had grown over the years. Her marriage to Harold Cross, while stable and secure, lacked the passion and emotional connection she craved. As Harold immersed himself in his career, Vivienne felt increasingly isolated, her needs unmet and her heart yearning for something more. It was during this vulnerable period that she crossed paths with Dylan Grayson, the teenage son of her neighbor, Lance Grayson. At first, their interactions were innocent, brief exchanges during neighborhood barbecues or casual conversations over the fence. But as summer unfolded, so too did an undeniable chemistry between them. Dylan's youthful energy and carefree spirit captivated Vivienne, awakening feelings she thought had long since faded. Their relationship began to evolve during a chance encounter at a local park. Vivienne was taking a solitary walk to clear her mind when she spotted Dylan practicing basketball with friends. The sight of him laughing and enjoying life struck a chord deep within her. She approached the group, and soon they were engaged in lighthearted banter. What started as a simple conversation quickly escalated into something more intimate as they began sharing personal stories and dreams. As their friendship blossomed, so did their attraction. Vivienne found herself drawn to Dylan's enthusiasm for life, which stood in stark contrast to her own sense of stagnation. He listened to her with genuine interest, making her feel valued and appreciated in a way Harold hadn't done in years. It wasn't long before their innocent friendship crossed the line into an affair that would change everything. The first kiss happened on a warm summer evening when they found themselves alone at a secluded spot by the lake. From that point on, their relationship spiraled into secrecy and excitement. They arranged clandestine meetings under the cover of darkness, sneaking away from their respective homes to rendezvous in hidden places around town. Each encounter was filled with fervor and urgency as they reveled in their shared passion while knowing the risks involved. Their communications became increasingly explicit as they exchanged messages filled with longing and desire. Texts flew back and forth late into the night, with Vivienne pouring out her heart to Dylan, confessing her feelings of entrapment in her marriage and how he made her feel alive again. Dylan reciprocated with fervent declarations of love, promising to be there for her no matter what. However, as thrilling as their affair was, it came with an ever-present cloud of guilt and fear. Vivienne often found herself tormented by thoughts of Harold, his unwavering trust in her and his obliviousness to the betrayal unfolding right under his nose. The weight of her deception grew heavier with each passing day. She knew that if their affair were discovered, it would not only destroy her marriage but also devastate Dylan's family. Despite these fears, Vivienne became adept at maintaining appearances. She continued to fulfill her role as the perfect wife, cooking dinner for Harold, attending community events, and engaging in polite conversation with neighbors, all while secretly nurturing a passionate relationship with Dylan. The duality of her life became exhausting. She was living a lie but felt unable to break free from either reality. As autumn approached, however, the thrill of secrecy began to fade, replaced by an ominous sense of dread. Both Vivienne and Dylan were acutely aware that their affair could not remain hidden forever. The risk of discovery loomed large over them like a dark cloud threatening to burst at any moment. One fateful evening marked a turning point in their relationship. After a particularly heated exchange filled with passion at one of their secret meetings, Vivienne confided in Dylan about her fears regarding Harold's growing suspicions. She explained how Harold had been more attentive lately, asking questions about her whereabouts and expressing concern over their strained relationship. Dylan listened intently but couldn't shake off his own feelings of insecurity regarding their future together. He wanted nothing more than to be with Vivienne openly but knew that such a dream was fraught with danger given their circumstances. Despite these challenges, they continued to meet in secret, each rendezvous becoming increasingly fraught with tension as both grappled with conflicting emotions, love for one another intertwined with guilt over their betrayal. As they navigated this treacherous path together, little did they know that fate had other plans for them. A series of events set into motion that would lead not only to heartbreak but also to tragedy beyond imagination. The affair between Vivienne Cross and Dylan Grayson was no longer just a secret. It was a ticking time bomb waiting to explode, an explosive mix of passion, betrayal, and impending doom that would soon engulf everyone involved in its wake. On Tuesday evening in late September, casting long shadows across the landscape. In the Cross household, the air was thick with tension, though Vivienne Cross and her husband, Harold, sat across from each other at the dinner table, engaged in a conversation that felt more like a formality than genuine connection. Harold was oblivious to the storm brewing beneath the surface of their marriage, while Vivienne's mind was consumed with thoughts of her clandestine affair with Dylan Grayson. As night fell, Vivienne's anxiety mounted. She had arranged to meet Dylan that evening at their usual spot, a secluded area near the lake where they had shared countless stolen moments. The thrill of their secret rendezvous was tinged with an undercurrent of dread. She knew their time together was limited, and the risk of discovery loomed larger with each passing day. Meanwhile, across the street, Lance Grayson returned home from work earlier than expected. He noticed that his son Dylan had not yet come home. Concerned, Lance called out for him but received no response. After searching through their house and calling friends to see if Dylan was with them, panic began to set in. Where could his son be? As Lance ventured outside into the dimming light of evening, he felt an unsettling sense of foreboding. The neighborhood was quiet, too quiet. He walked down the street, peering into yards and calling Dylan's name. With each passing minute, his worry deepened. It wasn't like Dylan to disappear without telling anyone where he was going. Back at the lake, Vivienne and Dylan were lost in their own world, wrapped in each other's arms as they whispered sweet nothings and shared passionate kisses under the stars. But just as they were caught up in their intimate moment, Vivienne's phone buzzed insistently in her pocket. It was a text from Harold asking where she was. Panic surged through her as she quickly silenced her phone, knowing she couldn't risk being discovered. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed through the stillness of the night, a sound that shattered their blissful bubble. Startled, Vivienne pulled away from Dylan and looked around nervously. "What was that?" she whispered. "I don't know," Dylan replied, his brow furrowing with concern. "Maybe it's just some kids messing around." But deep down, they both sensed that something was very wrong. As Lance continued searching for his son, he decided to check the lake, an area where Dylan often went to unwind or hang out with friends. As he approached the water's edge, he noticed something out of place, a pair of shoes partially hidden in the tall grass nearby. His heart raced as he called out again for Dylan but received no answer. In that moment of desperation and fear, Lance's instincts kicked in. He dialed 911 and reported his son missing. As he waited for help to arrive, dread settled heavily in his stomach. Within minutes, local law enforcement arrived on scene to investigate Lance's report. Officers began canvassing the area while others took statements from concerned neighbors who had gathered nearby. As they approached the lake, they were met with an eerie silence that sent chills down their spines. It wasn't long before one of the officers spotted something disturbing along the water's edge, a dark shape partially submerged near a cluster of rocks. As they moved closer for a better look, horror washed over them. It was a body. The scene quickly transformed into a crime scene as officers cordoned off the area and began their investigation in earnest. The victim was identified as Dylan Grayson, his lifeless body showing signs of struggle and trauma. The initial assessment indicated foul play. There were bruises on his arms and signs of a violent confrontation. Forensic teams arrived shortly after to gather evidence from the scene. They meticulously documented every detail: the position of the body, blood spatter patterns on nearby rocks, and any potential murder weapon that might have been discarded nearby. As they worked under bright lights illuminating the darkened surroundings, it became clear that this was no ordinary case. It was a murder investigation. Back at home, Vivienne received a phone call that would change everything. Harold had heard about Dylan's death on the news and rushed home to confront her about her whereabouts that night. The weight of her secrets crashed down upon her like a tidal wave as she realized how close she had come to losing everything. As news of Dylan's murder spread through the neighborhood like wildfire, shockwaves reverberated through families who once felt safe in their community. Questions swirled: who could have done such a thing? And what role did Vivienne Cross play in this tragic turn of events? With detectives now investigating every facet of both families' lives, including Vivienne's secret affair with Dylan, the stage was set for a complex web of betrayal and tragedy that would soon unravel before everyone involved. The quiet suburban neighborhood would never be the same again. It had become a backdrop for heartbreak and loss, a place where love turned deadly amid hidden secrets waiting to be exposed. As dawn broke over the neighborhood, the tranquility of the previous day was replaced by an atmosphere thick with tension and fear. News of Dylan Grayson's murder spread quickly, sending shockwaves through the community. Law enforcement officials worked tirelessly at the crime scene, piecing together the events that led to the tragic loss of a young life. Among them was Detective Marcus Trent, a seasoned investigator known for his keen intuition and methodical approach to solving complex cases. With years of experience under his belt, he understood that every detail mattered. As he arrived at the lake, he surveyed the area, taking note of the position of Dylan's body and the surrounding evidence. He could feel that this case would be anything but straightforward. "Get me a timeline of Dylan's last known movements," Detective Trent instructed his team as they began interviewing witnesses. "We need to know who he was with and where he went before this happened." As officers canvassed the neighborhood, they spoke with neighbors who had seen Dylan earlier that evening. Many mentioned his close friendship with Vivienne Cross, which raised immediate red flags for Detective Trent. The affair between Vivienne and Dylan had been whispered about in hushed tones, but now it was crucial to uncover the truth. Detective Trent decided to pay a visit to Vivienne Cross. He arrived at her home, where she sat in stunned silence, still grappling with the news of Dylan's death. Harold Cross was pacing anxiously in the living room, his face pale and drawn. "Mrs. Cross," Detective Trent began gently but firmly, "we need to talk about your relationship with Dylan Grayson." Vivienne's heart raced as she realized how precarious her situation had become. She struggled to maintain her composure as she replied, "Dylan was just a friend. We were close, but I never meant for anything like this to happen." Detective Trent studied her carefully, noting her nervousness and evasive demeanor. "We have reports of your frequent meetings with him," he pressed on. "Can you account for your whereabouts last night?" Vivienne hesitated, knowing that any misstep could expose her affair and lead to devastating consequences for both her and Harold. "I was at home. I didn't go anywhere," she stammered, hoping her words would suffice. Detective Trent wasn't convinced. He could sense that Vivienne was hiding something, but without concrete evidence, he needed more time to unravel the truth. As he left their home, he made a mental note to dig deeper into Vivienne's background and explore any connections she might have had to Dylan's murder. Meanwhile, as detectives continued their investigation into Dylan's life and relationships, they began interviewing friends and family members who could shed light on his recent activities. Each conversation revealed new layers of complexity. Dylan had been struggling with pressures at school and navigating his feelings for Vivienne while trying to maintain a facade of normalcy. The investigation was just beginning, but Detective Trent felt a sense of urgency. Time was running out to uncover the truth behind Dylan Grayson's tragic death. As he pieced together the fragments of this intricate puzzle, he knew that betrayal lurked in every corner, and someone would soon have to face the consequences of their actions in this web of secrets and lies. As the investigation into Dylan Grayson's murder deepened, Detective Marcus Trent found himself navigating a complex web of relationships filled with secrets and hidden motives. With each interview, the picture became clearer, yet more convoluted. The primary suspects began to emerge, and Vivienne Cross was at the forefront of his inquiries. Detective Trent returned to the Cross household, where he hoped to gather more information about Vivienne's alibi on the night of Dylan's death. Harold Cross, still reeling from the shock of losing a neighbor's son, was eager to cooperate. "I just can't believe this happened," he said, his voice trembling. "Vivienne was home with me all night. She would never hurt anyone. Can anyone confirm that?" Trent asked, his gaze fixed on Vivienne, who sat quietly beside her husband. Vivienne looked down, her heart racing as she realized how easily her fabricated story could unravel. "I was watching television. I didn't go out," she repeated, her voice lacking conviction. Detective Trent noted her hesitation. "We have evidence that suggests you were close to Dylan," he said pointedly. "Did you have any arguments or conflicts with him recently?" "No. We were friends," Vivienne insisted, but her nervousness betrayed her. The detective could see the cracks forming in her facade. As he left the Cross home, Detective Trent shifted his focus to Dylan's life outside of his relationship with Vivienne. He interviewed friends and classmates who painted a different picture of Dylan, a young man struggling with the weight of expectations from both his family and school. Several friends mentioned seeing him with Vivienne frequently, but they also hinted at tensions that had arisen between them recently. One friend revealed that Dylan had confided in her about feeling overwhelmed by his feelings for Vivienne. "He said it was complicated," she recalled. "He didn't know how to handle it. I think he was scared." Detective Trent took note of this information. It suggested that Dylan may have been feeling trapped in their relationship. It raised questions about whether Vivienne had felt similarly, perhaps leading to an emotional confrontation that escalated tragically. As the investigation progressed, another lead emerged, a series of text messages found on Dylan's phone that hinted at a deeper conflict. They revealed heated exchanges between him and an unidentified number, messages filled with accusations and threats that suggested someone else might have had a motive to harm him. Detective Trent worked quickly to trace the number associated with those messages. The results pointed to a local teenager known for his volatile temper and jealousy issues, someone who had previously clashed with Dylan over personal matters. With this new suspect in mind, Detective Trent felt a renewed sense of urgency. He needed to uncover the truth behind these messages and determine whether this individual could be connected to Dylan's murder. As he pieced together the fragments of evidence, it became increasingly clear that betrayal ran deeper than anyone had anticipated. The investigation was far from over, but Detective Trent felt the pressure mounting as he sought answers in a case where love and jealousy intertwined tragically, a case where every suspect held a piece of the puzzle leading to the truth behind Dylan Grayson's untimely death. In the wake of Dylan Grayson's murder, the small community was engulfed in a cloud of grief and disbelief. Neighbors who once exchanged friendly pleasantries now whispered in hushed tones, grappling with the reality that a young life had been violently taken from them. The sense of safety that had defined their neighborhood was shattered, leaving residents on edge and searching for answers. As the investigation unfolded, Detective Marcus Trent worked tirelessly to piece together the events leading up to Dylan's death. With the focus on Vivienne Cross and the emerging suspect linked to the threatening messages found on Dylan's phone, the pressure mounted for law enforcement to act swiftly. The community demanded justice, and tensions ran high as rumors circulated about potential suspects. Meanwhile, Vivienne found herself trapped in a nightmare of her own making. Harold Cross, still reeling from the loss of Dylan and unaware of his wife's affair, struggled to comprehend the unfolding tragedy. He watched as Vivienne became increasingly withdrawn, her guilt manifesting in sleepless nights and anxious glances. Harold's unwavering trust in her began to waver as he noticed her erratic behavior. The local news media descended upon the story, sensationalizing every detail of the investigation. Headlines screamed about the affair that led to murder, painting Vivienne as both a victim and a villain. As reporters camped outside her home, she felt suffocated by the scrutiny and judgment of a community that had once embraced her. In court, the atmosphere was charged with emotion as family members and friends gathered for preliminary hearings. The courtroom drama unfolded with heart-wrenching testimonies from those who knew Dylan best, each recounting their memories of a vibrant young man whose life had been cut short. As they spoke, it became clear that Dylan was not just a victim. He was a beloved son and friend whose absence left an irreplaceable void. Detective Trent continued his investigation, determined to uncover the truth behind the threatening messages that hinted at deeper conflicts in Dylan's life. As he delved into the background of the new suspect, a local teenager known for his volatile behavior, he discovered a history of jealousy and aggression toward Dylan. This revelation shifted the focus of the investigation, suggesting that there were multiple layers to this tragedy. As weeks passed, Vivienne's world began to unravel. She faced mounting pressure from law enforcement as they sought answers about her relationship with Dylan and any potential involvement in his murder. The weight of her secrets became unbearable. She knew that if her affair were revealed, it would destroy not only her marriage but also any semblance of normalcy she had left. The legal proceedings loomed ahead like a storm cloud, casting uncertainty over everyone involved. As Detective Trent prepared for what promised to be a contentious trial, he understood that this case was about more than just solving a murder. It was about unraveling the tangled web of relationships and emotions that had led to such devastating consequences. In this quiet neighborhood-turned-crime scene, lives were forever altered by betrayal and loss. The aftermath of Dylan Grayson's murder would leave scars not easily healed, a poignant reminder of how love can turn deadly when hidden secrets are left unchecked. As the trial approached, the community remained in turmoil, grappling with the fallout from Dylan Grayson's tragic death. Detective Marcus Trent reflected on the case, recognizing that it was a stark reminder of how betrayal can lead to devastating consequences. The intertwining lives of Vivienne Cross, her husband Harold, and the young Dylan revealed the fragility of trust and the destructive power of hidden secrets. Vivienne ultimately faced the truth about her affair, which had spiraled into a nightmare that shattered not only her marriage but also a family's future. As she stood in court, the weight of her choices bore down on her, each decision echoing through the lives of those left behind. The case served as a cautionary tale, highlighting the complexities of human relationships and the unforeseen repercussions of infidelity. In a neighborhood once filled with laughter and camaraderie, silence now reigned, a poignant reminder that love, when tainted by deceit, can lead to irreversible tragedy. As Detective Trent closed this chapter of his career, he hoped that this painful lesson would resonate within the community, urging others to confront their truths before it was too late.